Next up, we have Terry Moran, Senior National Correspondent at ABC News, to present our next Professional Excellence Award. Terry.
Well, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure and an honor to be with you here tonight. When I went through the program, I'm thinking, well, I'm out of my league, for real. The people whose work I've known and admired for years, and those I'm eager to hear about tonight. All your awardees are obviously very, very special, and I'm pleased and really honored to be here. We talk a lot these days, and must, about what's going on in journalism, what's going on in our business, and I don't really want to do that. I'm kind of done with it. And I'll also be 65 next week, so it's not my problem. But I want to talk about something else very briefly, I promise, and that's talk about us, about people who've done this work, people who are doing this work, people who you recognize tonight, and ask why. Why do they do it? Well, why do we do it? And I'm sure there's as many different answers as there are people who do it. But I'll offer a little insight from my brief time formally in your company as a foreign correspondent. I spent the years 2013, 2018 as ABC's Chief Foreign Correspondent. The first guy I ever worked for, he said he thought there should be only 2 titles at every news organization: editor and reporters. But then he realized he had to pay people differently and all the rest of it. But I was the Chief International Correspondent for 5 years, and it was great. It was amazing, right? It's incredible work. There's a mission in it, and it felt to me often, no matter what story I was doing, that whether it was in Syria or at a disaster area or at a royal event or whatever, the election of a pope, all things that I was lucky and privileged to cover, I felt often like every cell in my body, every nerve ending, every capacity I had, every passion that I might have was switched on to the highest pitch of intensity, because that's what the calling is, it seems to me. And there's something really special about that feeling, that sense of mission. I'm remembering Peter Jennings at this moment, who did this work for a long time and never left it behind. He spent something like 11 years or more in the Middle East, in an eventful time, as all times are in the Middle East. And I think he had the time of his life there as well, because I was over there with him a couple of times when he went back. And I always thought, a lot of people used to seeing Peter Jennings, not the younger generation, of course, but, behind the anchor desk, being the anchor man. An anchor is something you throw off the side of a boat, is what I like to say. But it's a joke, which I don't think Peter would laugh at. But I remember thinking, Peter, he was the kind of reporter, as so many who do this work are, who you could just pick up and put anywhere on the planet and put a camera on him, and you'd get great journalism. You'd get great storytelling, because he was a curious man. He was a passionate man. That's what made him tick. He was always wanting to walk down around the next bend or talk to the next person whom he met overseas. And it lit him up in that special way. And I will tell you, the one piece of advice that Peter Jennings gave me, he said shortly after I joined ABC News and was filing for his program a little bit, he said, Terry, when you're doing a live shot, he said, you should always leave the audience wanting to hear a little bit more from you. You should always leave a little bit on the table. And I've never taken that advice, but it was good advice. So why? For the awardees here, for those who've done this work, why do we do it? And as I say, there are as many different answers as there are people who do it. Each person who has worked overseas and taken that step, that difficult step sometimes. It's hard on the family, for sure. My wife used to say that it was like being married to both a doctor and a traveling salesman, because the doctor phone could ring in the middle of the night, and you'd be gone, but you wouldn't come home in the morning. It'd be like traveling Sundays. It'd be 3 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever, 10 days, 3 days, whatever. It's never a set schedule. And it's far away from home. When I asked to come back to the United States, James Goldson, who was running ABC News then, I said, I think it's time for us to come home. He said, you don't feel at home over there. And I hadn't thought of that. I kind of felt like the mission was not to feel at home, but other people are over there for decades and do great work. And I think that the why of it for me was that sense of mission, right? That every job on some days is just a job. But in this one, you get to work and have meaning attached to what you do. And that's so rare for so many people. And the page in this program of all the people who we've lost in this work shows the stakes and also why it's so needed, because they're going where other people won't. And the last why has to do with that, greater love. I mean, in a sense, it is about love. It's an awkward thing to say in front of a bunch of people, but that old brotherhood of man thing. And I think that at its best, every job is just a job on some days. But at its best, that's what it's about. And it reminded me, and that's what I'm going to close with, the lines of W.H. Auden, which he wrote on September 1st, 1939, at the beginning of another war, another dark time. And he said, defenseless under the night, our world in stupor lies. Yet dotted everywhere, ironic points of light shine out wherever the just exchange their messages. May I, composed like them of arrows and of dust, beleaguered by the same negation and despair, show an affirming flame. I'd like to hold in our hearts tonight all those, as Jennifer mentioned, who are overseas right now, far away from home in dark and dangerous places people don't want to go to, places people are trying to get out of, to shine the light of truth on those places, the truth that at the end of the day we're told might set us free. So thank you for that.